Okay, so I have reevaluated the way I color in this Kaleidoscope project. I used to have them leave a lot of white space. And then when they were hanging in the hall, I was just kind of like thinking, I don't know, I feel like it'd be cool if maybe we just filled it all in with color. Now, that's a really difficult task to do, especially when you're using watercolors, because they like to bleed together. By the way, what I'm doing here is I'm just adding water to my palette so that the colors I need to use are like kind of soft and ready to go when I need them. Otherwise, you spend a lot of time kind of swiveling your brush back and forth and kind of wasting time. Okay, that being said, on your Kaleidoscope project, I have now planned the design where every little bit on here is going to be filled with color. In order to stop your watercolors from running together, I've taken crayons and I've gone over my pencil designs and I press really, really hard to do so. When you press really hard with crayon, it creates like a waxy feeling on the paper and thus creates wax barriers where the color kind of can't go outside the edges. Now that being said, if you use a ton of water, it will go over those crayon lines and kind of into other spaces. You kind of have to be careful. If I've just painted this guy like an orange color, I probably don't want to go immediately behind it with the blue here, or they might just run together as well. So you do want to let them dry a little bit too if you can, okay? I actually went in and I colored in these solid with crayon in the middle, this black crayon, and then I did these solid with Sharpie on the outside edge. I just wanted some black on there, and I thought that like those, would look really vibrant and brilliant to do it that way. So if there's anything you want to color in with crayon, feel free to do that. You can actually blend crayons as well. You just have to overlap them really, okay? Now when it comes to blending colors, you have to blend colors that are side by side on the color wheel. So it goes like red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. So red and orange blend nicely, orange and yellow, yellow and green, you get it. Now generally it's a color wheel, so red and purple will meet each other on the other side of the color wheel. So red and purple can also blend. On the opposite side of this palette here I have red, violet, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. This one's just a lighter version of blue. So that being said, when I go to blend colors on here, I will kind of use colors that are side by side, okay? This shape right here is going to be like an orangey yellow. So I would start in with like a little bit of orange here, maybe on the edges, and then fade into a yellow. Now to make watercolors blend with another, they just have to be wet, that's all. So as long as this color is wet, it will blend really nicely with the yellow, okay? So if that's a huge shape, you might want to do like one half of the shape, blend it with the yellow before you move on. This is fairly small, so I did all of my borders. And I'm just kind of filling it with that yellow, and you can see like I have a good amount of water, so that stuff's just kind of blending together. I'm gonna wait before I do this purple shape just because I just did the yellow. I don't want them blending. You want to use some really fine point brushes if you have them on this. I use this big brush just to go in and wet down my palette, but the little brushes work better for this, obviously. Another thing about watercolor is that you should be totally in control of like how your colors turn out on your paper. You want a very small amount of water in order to make sure that you're in control of where that color is going, okay? For this one, I'm actually gonna kind of mix a blue green and a blue to make kind of like a soft seafoamy green. I'm just gonna add a little bit of color on the outside edges of these guys, and then I'm gonna add water. So I'm not even going back to the palette. I'm just kind of borrowing paint from the paper. Your paintbrush will act like a sponge if you allow it to. It'll kind of soak up different areas. Now obviously this first guy looks a little bit darker, so I'm just going to borrow some of his color and try and redistribute it over here by these guys. And then what I'm going to do is I'm not even going to add paint to my brush. I'm just going to add water and have these guys kind of fade downward. So I'm just going to go in with a clean wet brush. You could clean out the brush you have or use another one. And I'm just going to blend that color down. Now I just went and dried it off on a paper towel, and I'm continuing to blend downward to kind of create that fade from dark to light, okay? So a wet brush. Oh, I got a drop of water outside. Be careful if you get a drop of water right next to the border, it might let that color kind of bleed out of there. I still think that first one's turning out maybe a little darker than the others. So remember that you are in control of who's dark, who's not dark. If it's too dark, make it lighter. If it's light, make it darker. So what I can do is I can either absorb some more color, like dry off my brush and kind of soak up some color from that first one, which honestly I think I'm going to kind of do because I want this to stay kind of a light bluish color. I don't want it to get very dark. Use your brush if there's an area that's getting a lot of color to kind of like redistribute that color, kind of spread it out evenly. But like I said, less water means more control. And obviously, if you have no water, you're not going to be getting any color or any fun on the paper, so you need a little bit. But you want to be in control of that all the time. Definitely a paper towel nearby, because I don't know if you can see, but I've been dabbing my brush off a lot on that paper towel, okay? So like I said, eventually I'm going to fill in this whole thing with color. If I think of anything else as I go along, I'll turn you back on and give you some tips. Otherwise, I'll just show you when it's done. All right, one quick thing that I was thinking about as I was working is just that if something doesn't turn out as dark as you want, go back in later when it's partially dry or fully dry even, and add a little bit more color to it. I was wanting this area to look more orange on the middle and fade out to yellow. And so the orange was just kind of spilling into the areas where there was a crinkle on the paper and it was like getting light towards the middle. So I'm going back in and I'm adding that orange where I want it to go. I'm just adding another layer of orange. And so now that the paper has already absorbed some of that, it's absorbing some more orange. If it's too much orange, you could always go back in, redistribute. Remember that you are kind of in control of where that paint goes on the paper. And I know with watercolor, a lot of people feel out of control, but try to use that brush as a sponge or as a mover to get that color to go where you want it to go. If you want more, add more. If you want some to be taken away, take some away, or add more water to make things lighter, okay? Okay guys, at this stage, I'm gonna actually wait, and I'm actually gonna wait till the next day, maybe like tomorrow, to paint any more, because I just don't really have any areas I can paint that aren't touching something that was recently painted. If you wanna play it safe, that's the best way to do it, to make sure that colors are not running together. I know that my kids in class work on this for like 3 to 5 days, in a week, so I feel like you would have time to do that. And yeah, I'll tune back with you when I start painting again. Okay, so I was doing this really dark, like indigo purple color going around that yellow, and I wanted it to look really, really dark, so I'm actually going in and I'm adding a second coat to it. So long story short, some of your areas might require a second coat to be as dark or as vivid as you need them to be. On some areas, I actually went in and I added a little bit more water to kind of lighten things up. These yellowy orange spaces were getting like a really blotchy orange happening. So I went back in with just water and I actually tried to take away some of the color. So just keep that in mind, that like watercolor is kind of hard to control. So if you're kind of an OCD person like me and you really like things to look a certain way, you may need to go in and kind of readjust or add a little bit more color, take away some color, kind of like finagle with your brush, kind of force that watercolor to go in certain areas. Okay.